You have to stop doing the same thing over and over again. You have to make some type of change. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Can you just make one better decision today and then tomorrow? And then before you know it, that compounds. You do that for a month. I'm in a completely different area. You do that for a year and your whole life looks different.
We have to stop blaming the economy. Like, yes, it sucks. We're all living here, you know, we all understand. But what can you do for yourself to change your situation?
Are you making it harder on yourself by not tracking your expenses? Are you making sure that every single dollar is going to where it needs to go? Why do you keep making the same bad money decisions? And what can you do to finally take control of your finances? Welcome back to the show, everyone. Lauren and I are back for our weekly episode where we talk all things money, from getting out of debt, budgeting, investing, and all the other crazy things going on in the world of finance. Now, Lauren, I was talking to someone over Instagram the other day, and they were telling me that they just are starting to feel wrecked with their finances. And like at the end of the month, they feel like they're always playing catch up. And so I asked them, I was like, when was the last time you sat down, looked at all the numbers and tried to figure out like where you're going wrong? And, they said between working a high stress job, trying to raise a family, like they just didn't have the time to put together like a solid budget. And for a moment, it almost stopped me in my tracks because, throughout the conversation, this person definitely recognized like, hey, if I had a really solid budget in place, like it could probably help alleviate a lot of that financial stress and overspending that was going on. And it kind of got me thinking, like, if you know what the problem is and like at least what a potential solution could be, like, how do you justify continuing to avoid it and make the time for it? And so, the question I wanted to ask you is like, why do you think people continuously fail to make the time to prioritize their finances, even though they know that it could probably be a huge solution to the financial stress that they're experiencing?
Question of the century, Nick. I think the answer is similar to this question. Why do you not want to get a root canal? Because it's painful. It's painful. A lot of people have a lot of stress surrounding their finances, and it's because it's messy. They don't want to look in there, and they don't want to bring up all those negative emotions that come with it. I truly, truly, truly think that's what it is. A lot of people just think if I don't look at it, it's not real. I don't have to deal with it. But then they continue to feel more stressed and more stressed about their current situation. But looking at it and trying to figure out is almost more painful for them to do it. So they just continue to stay in the same cycle that they're in. That's what I truly think. I've just seen it so much, like money is such a complex thing that opening up your bank account just causes you, really, really negative emotions that you don't want to feel. So what do? We continue to do what we're doing because at least we're not feeling those negative emotions that our bank account brings up. I don't know. That's like my spiel on that, because I feel like that is really where a lot of people are.
Yeah. I mean, it's like ignorance is bliss, like what you don't know, you don't have to worry about. But I don't know. I feel like for me, at least, like having question marks in my head, like that is more stressful than whatever the situation might be, even if it's like not ideal, right? Like at least I know. And I don't know. I'm a big like problem solver. Like if there's a problem in front of me, like to me, it's less about how I feel about it and more of like, okay, what's the next step then? Like I'd rather just rush through figuring out the next step. That way it can like alleviate some of the stress. And like, I definitely know not everyone is like that, but it just feels like having that question mark in my head. And I feel like this might be true for a lot of people as well, is like that question mark, not knowing what the situation actually is, like that sometimes can be even more scary than actually looking at it. Right. And I get it. Like, sitting down, taking the time to look at the numbers, like there's a lot of fear that's probably surrounding that. But once you get past that and you realize, okay, this is the situation, whether it's exactly what I thought, worse or better, like that's probably going to feel a whole lot better than continuing to wonder, like, how bad is it really? Like, what if it keeps getting worse? Like, oh gosh, I don't want to keep looking at it, Yeah.
And I think another big issue is, so maybe like you don't have the education, you don't even really know what to do when you sit down and look at your finances. That's like, sure, you can look at everything you're spending, but you don't know what to do with it. And then something else I was thinking, another thing is like, you would have to make a lot of changes in your life to make that situation better. So like a lot of people know, okay, how do you lose weight? I have to work out and I need to eat healthier. Great. We know that it's painful to do, right? It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to change. So I think those are like some reasons why I know why people stay stuck in their finances, because it's very hard on the other side of that. It's not easy. And, life's hard. We don't want things to make it any harder. So why worry about it? You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know.
It's funny that you bring up the fitness side because like I feel like in my mind I always equate like finances and succeeding with finances like very similarly to like succeeding with your fitness. You know, like
Sure.
the things you have to do are very simple, right? Like it doesn't take a whole lot of education or knowledge to do. It's actually doing them. Like that's really hard. That's not easy for a lot of people. And like you said, mainly because so much of it has to do with changing your behavior. And a lot of times people correlate like, okay, well, my behavior is my identity. And so therefore I need to change like who I am to actually succeed. And that can be really hard. And again, whether it's your fitness or your finances, like if you have to change like who you are in terms of like what you are doing on a daily basis or how you live your life, like that is really hard, and there's a lot of fear in doing that. And so by avoiding it, you're like, okay, well, I don't need to question like who I am and why I make these bad decisions. I can just kind of keep living how I'm living until it gets to that boiling point where if it's with your finances, like if it's with your fitness, a medical issue comes up, and if it's with your finances, like something even worse, right? Like bankruptcy, or you lose the house, or whatever it is, right? Like ignorance is bliss only works until you get to a boiling point. And once you get that, like you probably would have rather gone back 6 months or a year and said, oh, I wish I had just gone through the feeling of being so uncomfortable of just looking at it so that it didn't get to this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, you really have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in this, whole situation of fixing your finances, truly.
Yeah. And, even like what you said, like, life is hard, and like there's going to be a number of difficult things that you have to do throughout life. But like at the end of the day, like you can either choose the hard that you want to tackle, and at least then it's your choice, or you can kind of just let life be hard and it's out of your control, right? Like if you say, okay, like changing who I am or the behaviors that I have or my spending habits or whatever, like that is hard. But life is going to be hard either way, right? Like you're either going to change, that's going to be hard, or you're going to stay the way you are, and that's going to probably even be harder down the road. So at the end of the day, like you kind of have to make the decision, which hard do I want to deal with? And is the thing that's hard, right? Like changing your behavior, is that going to make me better? Yeah. So like, wouldn't I rather do something that's difficult, but the outcome of that is better, as opposed to just continuing down a bad path? Life sucks, and then things get worse,
So that like segues into like our first question, like how do we break the cycle and finally get ahead? So this person writes, my husband and I have been behind financially pretty much our entire marriage. Every time it feels like we're getting ahead, something knocks us back down. We're in our late 20s with a hefty car payment, credit card debt, and student loans. I'm a stay-at-home mom with our second child due in a few months. My husband makes good money, but our spending habits are completely out of control. Eating out is a huge weakness of ours. We desperately want to move into a house and put the bad habits behind us. We're considering debt consolidation, but we're obviously not the most educated when it comes to our finances. What can we do to break the constant cycle of playing catch up and finally clean this up?
It's funny because you've said this before in other episodes, but like the way they worded their question, like it's like they know what they need to do, right? Like they need to get control of the spending, right? Like, okay, the good thing is they know what the issue is. Like eating out is a huge weakness. And I'd imagine eating out is also paired with just other unnecessary spending. So it's like, okay, that's issue number one. And then issue number two, probably the more pressing, is like, you guys have a ton of debt that you're dealing with.
Yep.
Like if he makes good money, right? Where's it all going? Well, eating out and then servicing your debt, like that. And that's a separate question from like, how do you break that cycle? But like, you at least know what the issue is in front of you. And like, they kind of answered like, what are the next things I have to actually tackle?
Yeah. And it's like, this question is also just like, we've been doing the same thing over and over again. How do we stop doing this? It's like, okay, well, you have to stop doing the same thing over and over again. You have to make some type of change. Like I just said, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because if eating out is a huge weakness of yours and that's what you really enjoy, I mean, and you have all this debt, you're going to have to change something up there. Like you're probably not going to be able to continue the same lifestyle that you have, So, but again, like we talked about, it's all the psychology around it. It really comes down to people are very bad with change. We like our comfortable lives that we live, and doing something to make a big difference in our life is going to be hard. And it's going to be hard to follow through with, right? To get everybody on the same page in the family. But yeah, I mean, you have to be willing to change something, and maybe just start small. Maybe just like, hey, instead of 4 nights eating out this week, we're going to cut back to 2, right? Like just start somewhere. I don't think like cold turkey ever goes well, because then you just like, you go cold turkey and then you're just like back to what you were doing because it's way too hard to do that. But I don't know, start small is what my first thought is here. And also you got to just go for it and get a little uncomfortable because that's the only way you're going to fix this, you know?
Yeah. And if you go cold turkey and that fails, which a lot of the times it does, you probably are going to feel a whole lot more guilty on top of that. Cause you're like, oh, like, I suck. I'm a piece of shit. Like I'm back to where I was before. Yeah. But like, no, like exactly like what you said, like it's not like the whole journey in front of you. It's literally like, what is the one single step that I can take today? And like, it always goes, for me, it always goes back to like, can you just get 1% better every single day? Right? Like, can you just make one better decision today? And then tomorrow. And then before you know it, that compounds. You do that for a month. Awesome. I'm in a completely different area. You do that for a year and your whole life looks different. Yep. But I think a lot of times, and again, like I feel like the talk about your finances correlates so much with your fitness. Like oftentimes doing what you need to do to improve your life or improve your financial situation, like it can be really hard if you're just trying to do it for yourself, right? A lot of times these big life changes that you have to make, like they're a lot easier if you're saying, well, you know what, like I want to change for this other person. And in particular, like these two people have kids, right? Like I want to be better for my kids. I want to be better so that when they grow up, they don't have to grow up like living this life of stress of we're always strapped for cash and like, oh, hey, you can't really go take on that extracurricular because we just don't have the money for it. Or mom and dad are always fighting over the finances or whatever it is, right? Like I think a lot of times people can get really hung up on changing just for the sake of changing. But if you can attach that to, well, I want to make this situation better, not just for myself, but for this other person. And in particular, when it's for like kids, I think that can be such a huge catalyst to say, okay, now is the time. Like if I can't do it for myself, like I can at least try to do this for them.
Yeah. And literally change your situation so that your kids don't end up there. And so that brings me to a question. You know, they say, well, I have two things here. Like they say, should we, do debt consolidation? We don't really know what we're doing here. So how do people, when someone's in this situation, I think 50% of America at least is in this situation, how do they understand money? How do they do better with their money? How do they figure this out? Like that's the biggest question, I think, is, they know they're in a bad situation, but how do they change this? How can they understand money and do better?
I feel like this might come off as harsh, but like, I feel like there's almost no excuse to be like, there's almost no reason why you should use the excuse, well, I just don't know how to do it. Right. Yeah. Like, I just don't know how to make a budget, or I just don't know like where I should start with my finances. Like, okay, if you use ChatGPT even like, and that's a free resource, like it's going to give you 50 different things that you can start doing today. Right. Yeah. And I get it. Right. Like if you compare two people, one person, like their parents educated them on how they should be handling money, and the other person, they didn't have someone to educate them on that. Right. Like they're going to be miles apart from where they start off in life, like especially early in their 20s. I totally get that. Yeah. What I'm saying is once you recognize that this is an issue, then it no longer is acceptable to say, well, I just don't know how. Yeah. You know the issue. Type that issue into it online, into something, right? Like there's so many free resources out there that if it's hard when you don't recognize the issue, but once you do, like now it's on you, right? Like, okay, you didn't know it was an issue. Life just sucked. Okay. That's more excusable. But once you understand, okay, I know there's an issue, and more than that, I know what the issues are. We have debt. We eat out constantly. Like there's probably a bunch of other BS spending going on. Yeah. Now it really is on you, right? It's almost excusable when you are ignorant because you just don't know anything about anything. But when you know more about it and you can understand where it is, it's hard to feel as much compassion for it, because it's like there's so many ways you can just figure out what's one thing I can be doing better, and I don't mean that to be like to mean to other people or whatever. It's just like you have so many resources like in today's world to just figure anything out. Like YouTube has like millions of videos get uploaded every single day, a fraction of those are on finances, right? Like one just like this, right? Like there's always going to be some place that you can learn how to do this stuff, even if it's just like a starting point. Yeah.
I mean, literally like this, we have a podcast about money and we're just one of like hundreds of them, you know what I mean? And it's free, like to listen and to read books and things like that. My whole debt-free journey started because I asked Google a question, like, should I buy a house without much savings, and that took me down a rabbit hole of learning. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have to pay if anybody to teach me this stuff. I just like read about it, you know what I mean? And then it was like, okay, if I want to change, I'm going to have to put the time and the effort into this to actually make a difference, because what I'm doing right now is not working. Right. I also think something that comes up a lot, like in this situation, like, okay, we have a lot of debt and stuff, and like we need to change, but we just haven't. They use like we don't know how, not excuse, but like it's a situation, whatever.
Yeah.
They use that. And then they also, I know a lot of people just want to kind of blame on the economy, which sure, the economy isn't the best. You know what I mean? There's the inflation, whatever. But I also feel like that's a lot of like excuses as well, because you can't say it's on the economy and then say you're eating out and it's a huge that's just a huge weakness of yours. Those don't correlate. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be doing that. Right. So I think that there's just some accountability that you need to take too. Like, okay, we definitely have messed this up, and now it's up to us to figure this out and, and fix it. But something they wrote here, which we also see all the time, we're considering debt consolidation. It's the typical story, got all this debt. Let's do debt consolidation. Let's fix it. Well, the problem with that is you think you've really done something when you've consolidated your debt, because now you have one payment and you're just like, oh, you just feel so good. You just feel like I have done something here with my debt, when really all you did was like move it over, you know what I mean, to like one account. And so I think that's the biggest thing too. And I don't blame them for not knowing. I think, I don't know. I don't blame them for that, but it has to be known that like, there's no behavior change there. There's no actions that you're changing in your daily. Exactly. There's no actions that you're changing in your daily life that's going to make a difference in how you're spending currently day to day. Consolidating your debt is just moving it over. And then what happens is there's no behavior change there. You're doing the same exact things that you've been doing. You don't learn anything from that. You haven't went through anything hard to do that. So then you get another credit card, and then the debt starts rolling in again. And then you're like, I'm so confused why I'm in debt again, And then you're like, what about the zeros transfer card? Should I just do that? And then like, I'll just pay that off eventually. This is what happens to people. We see it time and time again. It's what is that phrase? Like oldest time, story as old as time, or whatever that is. Like literally, like I feel like because again, there's no change there. So I don't know. Debt consolidation can be helpful, but without proper, action on your end, you're going to end up in the same situation that you're in already. So, that's my spiel on this.
No, 100%. Like anytime someone says like, oh, I'm considering debt consolidation to get out of the situation, I'm like, cool, awesome. Get more information on that. Yeah. Are you also budgeting? Are you also tracking your expenses, tracking your income? Like, are you making sure that everything in your budget is exactly like the things that you need to be spending on, not the things you want to be spending on? They're like, oh, well, no, I'm just looking for a solution for the debt. Like that is the solution. Yeah. If you change the behavior, awesome. Now you compare that with debt consolidation as another tool, just like budgeting, right? Yep. It's just another tool. Then you can actually start to make progress. But oh my God, it happens so many more times than people think. They consolidate the debt. They feel really good. The credit cards are at a zero balance. I'm just going to throw one on here and then another expense on here. And then before you know it, now they have double the debt, right? And that's the issue, is like debt consolidation. It can be a path towards getting way ahead with your finances or improving your situation, or it can be a real quick shortcut to doubling your debt, especially if like you've paid off all the credit cards now, and then now you can just easily rack that up again. At least if you're in a terrible financial situation with credit card debt, for most people, it's like, well, I've maxed out the card, so I literally can't put anything else on it. It's like, cool, at least you can stop the bleeding then, right? Right. But one thing you had said earlier about like blaming the economy, like there's this Dave Ramsey saying, and look, I definitely don't love everything Dave Ramsey says, but he always says this one quote, and what happens in your house is a whole lot more important than what happens in the White House. And to me, like, yeah, the economy is going to be the economy, right? Like you have very little influence over what happens with it, right? There's people who have direct correlation to what goes on, right? Like, and they're in the White House or they're in Washington or whatever. What you can do though, like you're going to have so much more control over your life if you say, I'm responsible for what happens. And yeah, other things may be going on outside in the world around me, but if I fully take control of everything that I can control, then my life's going to be a whole lot better, regardless of who's in the White House, right? Like whether you agree with who's in there or you disagree, like at the end of the day, like what you do is going to have so much more of an impact than what anyone else is doing in the world. Yeah, absolutely. Now, to bring this whole question together, how do people break this cycle? Like, I think obviously it's learning a little bit more, taking like small steps to start,
but like you have to make a change. You know what I mean? You cannot continue to just do this and actually commit to it. So I think that there's like a few, I don't know what else you want to add there, but like obviously like learning something and actually starting to change what you're doing your day to day to clean it up from what you were doing before, and then commit to it. And give yourself a few years and hopefully you're out of this situation, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, I think step one, like you got to be aware of what's going on, right? If you can bring awareness to your finances, clarity, it's most of the times it's going to be glaringly obvious, like where is the issue popping up, right? Like is it the car payment? Is it because your housing's too expensive? Is it because your largest expense category is you eating out or buying clothes or whatever it is, right? Like most of the time, if you take the time to just sit down and look at all the numbers, like let me just go through a month's full worth of statements, it's going to be pretty obvious like what the issue is. And then, like you had said earlier, like, okay, instead of eating out 4 nights, can I just eat out 2 nights, right? Like it doesn't have to be these massive identity changes overnight, right? Mm-hmm. It's just one little thing. What little thing can I practice today that's going to put me into a better position tomorrow, or going to bring me less guilt or less stress or whatever it is. And I think a huge thing too, for people who are in this cycle is like, how many roadblocks can you set up for yourself to prevent what's going wrong, right? Yeah. Like if you know what's going wrong and you're constantly struggling with it, okay, can I set up a bunch of roadblocks so that every time I go to make this bad decision, there's so many points along the way where I can change course, right? Because if it's just one quick decision, before you make the same mistake again, it's going to be so easy to make that. But if you can say, okay, well, I got to use this specific card, and that card is only at home, and it's in my drawer. And so like, I got to be home, and then I got to go get that card. And then it's not saved on my phone. So I have to type in the numbers, right? Like all these little roadblocks to be like, okay, is this the decision I want to continue making, or do I want to try something different today? Like to me, that's what I found to be a huge difference, is like all the roadblocks, like all the points where you can say, I want to be a different person today. Like that's what can really make a huge difference. Yeah.
And I also think in this situation, they said, we desperately want to move into a house and put the bad habits behind us. Okay, set a goal for yourself. You guys need to dream bigger, because living with these debt payments and eating out is that really what you want for your life? You know, do you want to move into a house? Then stop doing all those crazy things and save up and get a house. Like that should be the ultimate goal there, and like what you're working towards. Like, do you find what you're doing right now is to be like worthwhile, or do you actually want to get to the bigger goal? Like, I think we need to start dreaming bigger, and like we need to see something at the end there, because when we're just seeing the day to the day and Chick-fil-A and Wendy's, like, you know, it's hard to see those bigger goals out there. But if you say, hey, I really want a house where me and my family can live, then it starts to make those decisions of like, no, we're going to eat at home tonight a little bit easier. That's the thing. I just don't think when people are in this situation, they don't really dream, because they feel so behind that there's no point to even dreaming, right? But you got to start somewhere, and you have to be able to, you know, find something to move yourself forward. And I think goals, bigger goals, you know, more worthwhile goals than just eating out every day is something that's going to be able to help them, you know?
That big, like having that big vision is such a huge part of it. Like,
huge.
Like even just like for me and my wife, like our home buying journey, like that started, as silly as it sounds, because we adopted a dog and we wanted that dog to have a huge backyard. And it was like, that was like the thing. We were like, we want this dog to have an amazing backyard so that they can be running inside of the house all the time. Like they can just enjoy it. You know, that's what started us on the journey of wanting to buy a home. And then like that became such a big vision that we continued to pursue it. All right, taking a quick break from today's episode, Lauren and I have some exciting news we'd like to share with you. If you're feeling stuck with your finances and don't know where to start, we have you covered with our one-on-one financial coaching.
These are no strings attached coaching sessions that you can sign up for today. No ongoing commitment. You simply book a session whenever you need one.
Each call is 90 minutes, and by the end of it, you'll have a clear budget to work with and a solid plan to start paying off your debt. Plus, we'll make sure you walk away with some awesome tools to keep you on track, including our budget dashboard and expense tracker, as well as our debt payoff optimizer.
And the best part, you'll get to work with both of us on the call. Together, we'll help you develop the best possible strategy forward, answer your questions, and make sure you feel confident about managing your money.
So if you're ready to get a handle on your budget and kickstart your financial journey forward, check out the link in the show notes to book your first session.
We can't wait to get started with you. Now, back to the episode.
I think a huge part of this as well is like, once you start to make the behavior changes, once you start to get on a path forward, like you have to learn how to like let go of what happened in the past, right? Like yeah, you're going to still be likely for a while continuing to correct those behaviors. But if you continue to like hold on to all of the regret that of like, oh man, like I'm only doing this because of like how shitty I was living for so long, like that can be a huge thing that holds you back. And I think that leads us right into our next question, where this person asks, how do I cope with intense regret from financial mishaps? Throughout my life, I've been good with budgeting, saving, and making good financial decisions, but I've had a few major blunders over the last few years that have cost me tens of thousands. Bad investments in crypto, purchasing a lemon car, and co-buying a property that I'll have to sell at a loss soon. It feels like these blunders have completely wiped out years of being financially smart in other areas. The amount I have lost is without a doubt a life-changing sum of money that I worked hard for. It's hard to not feel like I'm an idiot and the regret eats away at me. I've heard it's okay, you're young, now is the time to make mistakes and learn from them. But as far as personal finances go, mistakes like these in my late 20s and 30s are unacceptable. How can I cope with this?
Aw, I love this question. I really do, because I mean, it's true. It's okay. Like, you are young, and it's probably better to make these mistakes now than like when you're 50 or 60. And something I noticed about the situations here, you know, like the last situation was just like, yeah, we've been doing the same thing for years and years and years. To me, it seems like the bad investment in crypto, purchasing a lemon car, and buying a property, they don't relate to each other. So it's not like he made or whoever made the same mistake this, 3 times in a row.
Which
it just seems
worse,
like they
right?
What'd you say?
Which would be even worse, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they're beating themselves up, but like none of those things really relate to one another. I think you probably just got like a little unlucky. Yeah, sure. You may have lost like, I don't know, tens of thousands, whatever. But in the grand scheme of your life, like that is a small amount. And you have learned very valuable lessons. Like, will you ever co-buy a property again? Absolutely not. So you won't do that again. I personally am like a big believer in like, we make the best decision at the time with the information we have available. So like, I truly believe that. And at least I hope we do. You know what I mean? So like, I think acceptance is like the biggest thing for them, because you don't want to continue to feel shame and regret. Like, what is that doing for you? How is that going to change your future? You know what I mean? To just feel that way about your past. It is what it is. You know, you've made those choices back then, you learn from them, and now you're growing from them and you're going to move forward. So I don't think there's any reason to carry that shame forward. And you now, like, I think they said they're in their late 20s, early 30s or whatever. Like, that's very young. I mean, sure, it's cliche to say that, but like, you have a lot of opportunity to really grow your wealth. And now you will definitely check into all these things and make sure that you don't make a bad decision next time. Like buying a lemon car, you will definitely have the car checked out fully before you do that, right? So I don't know. I'm not a big person. I don't like shame to like as a way to change. Like, again, using the like the diet example or whatever, like, don't hate yourself into changing. You know what I mean? Like, same thing with this. Like, I just don't think it's valuable to like shame yourself, to hate yourself, and just like feel terrible about what you've done, because it doesn't change anything regardless, you know?
Yeah. I mean, every time you make a mistake, you're at a crossroads of, do I continue making mistakes or do I learn from this? And if you actually learn from it, like, yeah, it still probably wasn't the most ideal situation, but you're probably going to come out better on the other side of actually learning from that mistake. But like you said, like, if you can make these mistakes early on in life, they're not going to be as detrimental to your finances as if you were to make these mistakes when you're 50, 60 years old, close to retirement age. Like, you're almost better off making a shitty financial decision when you're in your 20s so that you can learn from it. And now that experience is going to carry you through, maybe with a little more caution, or maybe with being willing to take a little more risk, or whatever the situation was, into your future. And that's probably going to help you get to where you're going. That's going to be what gets you to where you want to go. But like, I mean, one just like quick story is like, my younger sister-in-law, she fell for one of those Zelle scams. Like, lost $1,200. Like, they Zelled her money, and then she was supposed to Zelle the other, and then she would keep the balance. Lost like $1,200, right? And she's like a young college kid, so like, it's okay, right? Like, it happens. It's stupid. Like, how did you? That's not how money works, but it's okay, right? But as shitty as it is, like, guarantee you she's never going to fall for another scam again, at least for the next 10 years, right? Like, that's going to be so fresh in her mind. Anytime anything with money and transferring things comes up, it's like, oh man, is this another scam? And I personally would rather have a $1,200 mistake, which $1,200 is no, like, I don't want to lose that, right? Like that's not like a fun amount of money to lose. It's not like we're talking like $50, but like a $1,200 mistake is very small if you make it in your 20s. And now it carries you forward with all the knowledge of like, all right, I'm going to approach every situation with a bit more caution, a bit more skepticism, just to make sure like this isn't the wrong decision that's going to come back and bite me.
Yeah, I think we've all we've all had some sort of financial mistake that we regret, but like, have we learned from it? Sure. Now, if this person said all this and then said, well, I think I'm still going to do another property with somebody else, buy another property, like, then that's on you, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, that's your fault. But I don't know. I like this question, but I don't like that they're just like continuously carrying the shame around of their past, because it doesn't help anything in the future. Now, I think the bigger question is, how do people know that it's a financial mistake? Because, in this situation, like I mentioned, these things are not related to one another. So it's not like he knew, he's purchased, I don't know how he purchased the car. Did you not get it checked out? Like, what was it?
Yeah.
Same co-buying a property, like, there's always risk there when you have somebody else that you're buying something with, and it's kind of same thing with crypto, but I guess you have to look at what it is, right? So let's say it's the crypto. Probably not the most stable investment at the time. If you're putting a bunch of money in and hoping for like a crazy, upside to it, like that's probably not the best bet. You know what I mean? Like I personally with crypto, I'm only putting money in there that I am okay to lose, just because that's what might happen. I would never put something in there, hoping for a gain on it. You know what I mean? That's when you can get yourself into trouble. So I think you need to look at what it is and, weigh everything out from the good to the bad to the ugly, everything. Same thing with buying a car. Like this person, I mean, you want to hope that the dealership is doing a good job at it, but maybe finding someone else just to look at it. I mean, this person's probably going to do that in the future. My biggest thing with like big purchases and to know if I'm going to make a financial mistake is probably to take a lot of time with it and don't make fast decisions when it comes to like anything you're going to be spending money on. Right. If you would have just looked into the stuff a little bit more, potentially wouldn't have made those types of decisions,
Definitely. And taking your time with it. And yes, like you had said earlier, having that big vision. So that way you can ask yourself at every big financial decision, is this getting me closer or further? And if it's getting me further, there's still ways you can like reasonably justify that. Like, okay, buying a car is probably not getting me closer to retiring with like a 7-figure net worth, but I do need a vehicle. And so you can still at least approach it with a little bit more awareness of like, okay, this isn't getting me closer. And so therefore I really do need to take my time and make the right decision with this. But just the way that this person worded the question, like I'd imagine if these mistakes if they had led this person to like bankruptcy or to like a terrible financial situation, that would probably be what the question is about. I imagine just from reading it, like, okay, I've been pretty good with my finances for most of my life. I just made these mistakes and I'm hanging on to them. Like they're probably not in a terrible financial situation as a result of these mistakes. It seems like more so like the guilt is weighing heavy on them. And like, I think this person needs to stop. Like this person in particular where, okay, I'm still healthy on the other end of this, like take a look at where you're at today. Like, are you still relatively happy with where you're at today? Like, yeah, those mistakes sucked, right? Are you still happy with the progress or the trajectory of where you're going? And if you are, and maybe it's been some time since these mistakes, well, you can say, okay, well, I'm only here because of these mistakes, right? Like you don't get to where you are just because of the wins. In fact, you probably get to where you are more so because of the losses and course correcting as a result of those. And like, I would encourage this person to look, 5 years into the future, to look back and say like, okay, did those mistakes, did they really like screw me up? Or was it more so me constantly thinking about them, weighing myself down? That probably had more of an effect than the financial mistakes you made. Yeah.
And like you said, like it's not, I mean, we don't know this, but like I think that they didn't have to go into bankruptcy. They're probably okay. But yeah, do they have like less money in their savings account or their investment account now? Yeah, probably. But so do I. I think I've told you before, I left a job after 7 years and I wasn't vested until 10 years. So I left 7 years of employer matches, behind, which is quite a bit of money. But, on the other side of that, I got a better job and now I'm really happy and I'm really financially stable. So I'm like, that was a financial mistake, but I don't carry that around, so I don't know. I think it's going to be okay. But yeah, I love this person's question. And I hope that they like come to terms with it and like just move on with your life. You've got a long life ahead. There's no reason to keep carrying this around.
My favorite cheesy saying about stuff like this is the rearview mirror is small, but the windshield is big for a reason. And it's because where you're going is a whole lot more important than where you've been, right? Like the rearview mirror is meant to be small. Like if you pay too much attention to it, you're not going to see where you're going. And if you only look forward, you might make the mistakes again, right? And so you kind of have to balance both. Like be aware of the mistakes you did make, carry those into the future a little bit, but like don't let those weigh too heavy on you. You know, like the knowledge you've gained from those, or like the lessons you learned, carry those, not the actual mistake itself, because that's just not getting you anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, switching gears a little bit here. So we mentioned, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but this question says, I literally cannot save in this economy. I make $24 an hour, double what I was making a few years ago. But today I have $12 left in my account as I wait for my next paycheck. I don't eat out, I don't buy clothes, and I don't have any debt. My mortgage is $720 a month, and the only other expenses are gas, groceries, home insurance, and car insurance. Yes, there's usually some random BS expense once a month on top of necessary expense like a medical bill or a car repair, but this economy sucks big time. There's literally nothing else I can cut. I have 2 boys, and there's literally no money left over for any fun spending whatsoever. I cannot keep going like this.
I want to know where this person lives, where they have a $720 mortgage, because that's a great place to be. But I mean, no, they're in a tough spot. Yeah, right. Yeah, they're actually back in time.
Yes.
But $12 left in your account. Look, I'm not saying making $24 an hour is an amazing income by any stretch of the imagination, but it's also not, it's not terrible.
That's 50K.
That's $50K a year, right? Like that's not terrible. Yeah, I would say like things are definitely tight, but depending on where you live, if you live in a place like this where you can get a mortgage for $720, I imagine they probably had this for a while, may have gotten it when interest rates were low. Either way, that's a great mortgage. And just like kind of looking at some of the things they listed out, like, I don't know, the math isn't really adding up. Like you said, this is $50K. Okay, like assuming, most jobs that are in the $50K range, like they might not be taking out for 401K. They may or may not have like offer medical that you can pay into. I would imagine this person's bringing home like $3,300 after like taxes, potentially some deductions.
Yeah.
Now, if you kind of make some estimates, they didn't give all the numbers, but if you can make some reasonable estimates for some of these other expenses, their gas, their groceries, home insurance, car insurance, they're probably coming in at right around $2,000, right? Like just with those things, if you make some reasonable estimates on how much they would be spending, especially, they said they're raising 2 boys. Yeah. It sounds like it might just be like this family of 3. Like, I don't know. I would guess like maybe like $700 for groceries to younger boys, probably eating a whole lot, but like, I don't know. That's like $2,000, right?
Yeah.
Where's the other $1,300 going? And like this person kind of said like, yeah, there's some random BS once a month, but this economy sucks. And I don't know why I only have $12 left in my account. Like, what's the, like, don't just like blow past it. Like, what's the other random BS going on? Like, I totally understand the medical bill, car repairs, but the other random BS, like that's where the sweet spot is. Like, that's where you're probably letting things fall through the crack. Like it only happens once a month. It's just one little thing. Well, how big of a once a month occasion is this? Like, because there's $1,300 that are just not accounted for. Even if you were to be a little bit more, a little bit more generous with some of those expenses. Okay, there's like $1,000 that's unaccounted for. Even $800 that's unaccounted for. Like that's a huge chunk of money. That's a whole lot more than the $12 you have left in your account. So I don't know. Some of the math wasn't adding up on this for me.
Math's not mathing. Yeah, and there was no expenses in here about the boys. Like, do they do nothing? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's got to be those random BS expenses are probably something that comes up more often than not because they're just not planning for them, I don't know. I do feel for people like $50K. I mean, yeah, you're like you said, if you're in a place that has a $720 mortgage, you could probably live a little bit better. $50K is tough to live on, like, especially like a big city or something. But yeah, But the thing is, it's like they don't have any debt. They don't eat out. They don't buy clothes. So like, where is it going?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't do the math here either. But yeah, something's not adding up. But at the end of the day, like we mentioned before, we have to stop blaming like the economy. Like, yes, it sucks. We all get it. We're all living here. We all understand. But what can you do for yourself to change your situation? Like, I think we would find the answer in that some BS expense.
Yeah.
That's where we would find the answer to this question. What is that? So, or, how, is there multiple expenses that are happening each month? Because like you said, even if you were to be generous there's $1,000 that's like hanging out there somewhere. So where is that going? Is that even a lot left at the end of the month? Not a lot. I mean, what if they're not, I don't know if they're already investing or whatever, but I don't know. I don't like the situation for this person, but I do think we need to take a little accountability here.
Yeah, 100%. I feel for it, right? Like you're raising 2 kids. I don't know if like the other partners in this situation, this person made it sound like it's just the 3 of them. Yeah. I definitely feel for that situation. You have $12 left in your account. You're kind of looking at your boys like, sorry, like we can't do anything for the rest of the week or the rest of the month or until I get paid. But like, I don't think I know anyone whose expenses are only housing, gas, groceries, and then like 2 forms of insurance. Like there's definitely other expenses. And granted, they were probably just ranting a little bit, like maybe wanted to vent, probably weren't meticulously making sure that like all their expenses were included here. So like there's probably a few other things that do have to get paid. Like maybe they do get medical through their job, so that gets deducted. I'm sure there's some phone bills in there, some internet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. Like there's a few things that are obviously missing from this, but I guarantee you there is still money unaccounted for that like is going to BS to where you could have more than just $12, and maybe that's $212, but that's still a whole lot better, right? Like I would really question this person. Like if you're in a really shitty situation, sure, the economy is not making it easier on you by any means, but are you making it harder on yourself by not tracking your expenses? Like, are you making sure that every single dollar is going to where it needs to go? And if it is, okay, maybe like the economy is really weighing heavy on you, right? But if you're not like 100% aware of where all of your money is going, then just saying like it's because of the economy, it feels like a cop out, like, oh, I don't need to like do anything about what I'm doing because the economy is so shitty that like even if I did something, it wouldn't make a difference. Like, no, it would make a whole lot more of a difference if you found where the holes were in your life and your spending and in your budget and you corrected those. Like that's going to make a huge difference. And again, even if that frees up a couple $100 for you, like that's a whole lot more of a cushion than just $12, which is basically, you might as well just have $0 in there, right? Yeah. Like you're probably still getting hit with overdraft fees if you needed to make another purchase. Like even a couple $100 could be life-changing in an event where some situation comes up, Yeah. And something I was thinking about, aside from this situation, it doesn't have anything to do with this, but like just the economy overall, I feel like, as inflation has went up and people are talking about it more and, have less to spend or whatever, I feel like there's like this entitlement there. Like just because like things are more expensive now, like we don't feel like we should have to adjust our spending at all. Like we just want to continue to blame the economy, for this. And like, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to continue to do what I want because it's the economy. And so like things are bad, but I want to still live the way I'm living. You know what I mean? Just like that situation before, I was like, the people were talking about how they just can't stop spending and, they like to eat out and stuff. But, those are the type of people that also say like the economy sucks, which are like, is it making you eat out multiple times per week? You know what I mean? Like you can adjust things a little bit, but it's that entitlement sort of mindset that's like, well, I shouldn't have to. You know what I mean? Like things should be like they were and I should be able to spend like this and still have this amount of money. But we don't live in those times anymore. None of us do. So like, you have to adjust some things or understand that you're not going to have money left over. Like you have to make a choice, Whether things shouldn't be the way that they are or they should be different, like should or shouldn't, like it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, like yeah, you can dream of like what an ideal situation or what an ideal world or an ideal economy would be. But at the end of the day, like that's just not the reality. And so, yes, you can still spend time like thinking about how this sucks, but you're better off if you spend the time actually like taking control of what you can take control of, right? Because like whether things should or shouldn't be, like that's not going to get you anywhere, right? And like, yeah, there's issues with everything in every part of the world. Like there's going to be issues in that economy, right? That you can set that aside and say, okay, this situation sucks, but what can I do about it? As opposed to this situation sucks. And so therefore I'm not going to do anything about it. Like the moment you take control, like the moment your life's going to change. And then when the economy eventually gets better, because as we've seen in the past, like it always does, right? Like, and it could take a long time, right? Like there's been periods of like 10 years where the economy kind of sucked. And like that could be the case today. No one knows. But if you take control now, by the time we get out of this, you're going to be like a rock star, right? Like now it's going to be, oh, you're not going to suddenly switch and say, oh, well, I'm only doing good because the economy is doing good, right? Like, no, it's still going to be because you decided to take control of where you want to go.
Yeah. This made me think of something, Nick, as you were talking. Whenever I was first out of like college and I was like living on my own, working my full-time job, had my apartment, everything, I was not making much money. I literally think my salary was like, I'm no joke. I think my salary was like $34,000 a year. And nice. I was living on my own and my rent was $850 a month. So I don't even know how I was affording that. But anyway, it made me think of something because back then I remember like telling friends and stuff, and it kind of embarrasses me now, but I remember just being like, oh, I'm just so broke, just constantly talking about being broke and just like feeling like woe is me type situation, self-pity. Like this sucks. Like I'm living on my own. I had to work 2 jobs. Actually, I worked my full-time job and then I worked a job on the weekend, sort of like per diem, to make money to afford that rent, obviously. Cause it was probably half my income actually.
I was doing the math. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is, Nick, I told you, I've never had credit card debt. I made it work. I had a second job. I'll tell you right now, I've always had a great credit score because I get my stuff paid. You know what I mean? Like yeah. I was never going to be late on that rent. So, and they knew that. But I just remember having like that mindset of like, oh, I'm so broke. Like, woe is me. Like, this is just awful. Like, life sucks. And that was just like a very weird time for me. And then I remember like starting to take control of my money and start tracking my expenses. And that's when I started tracking my expenses and like planning out where my money was going. And I was like, you know, because I didn't have a lot of money, but like I would buy random shit here and there, you know, like at Walmart or like eating out or something like that. And then I started realizing like, okay, like I can adjust how I'm thinking about this a little bit and I can adjust how I'm spending a little bit. And then, you know, I started my debt-free journey when I was making $48,000, I think. So I jumped up a little bit there, but really started that debt-free journey on that lower income, average income, whatever. And because my mindset was different, I started to make like giant leaps forward. And in a 3-year span, I paid off my student loans and I paid off my car. So I was debt free. So I went from like, I'm broke and I'm just like, woe is me, all this like, you know, bad mindset about money, and then took control of it and was like, you know what, I can fix this. Nobody else is going to come save the day, to being debt free. You know what I mean? So there's like you were talking about, like you have to like change the situation. You have to like take accountability and like, you know, fix your own life to make it, you know, work for the world you're in. Right.
It is funny, as you were saying that, it got me thinking. So my wife works in like the public health sector, and a lot of people, you know, for a lot of jobs there, you need to have your master's degree. Yeah. And, you know, right after she finished her master's, and so like during her master's, she was working like 30 hours a week while going to school. And then immediately after, like all of her focus was getting her student loans paid off. Yeah. And so she worked hard for a few years to get that paid off. But now, you know, she's been debt free for several years now. And even today, like she'll be at work and like somehow it'll come up, and like, you know, someone who's older than her for sure will be like, oh yeah, these student loan payments or whatever. Or when student loan payments had finally started to resume, everyone was talking about it. Yeah. And she almost felt like guilty to say out loud, like, oh, I paid mine off. But then when she would come home, the first thing she'd say to me is like, man, you guys are way older than me. Like, how are you still paying these off? You know, she wouldn't say that to them, to their face or anything, but like our conversation, like she was just like mind blown, because she's like, how did you not feel such an immense pressure to just get these things paid off and moved out of your life? You know, because like she knew she didn't want to be 10 years down the road still being like, oh, these student loan payments that I'm still dealing with, you know? So it just, I don't know, what something you said like totally made me think about like when you've kind of flipped the script for yourself, you can almost feel this weird sense of like guilt. Like I used to feel like, oh, I'm just so broke and this is my life. And now you're like, wow, it kind of like, I feel shitty when I hear someone else say like, oh, like, yeah, these payments are weighing down on me, but I'm sitting over here like debt free or something. You know, it's kind of like a weird place to be, but it's also like not something you should like you know, I don't think you need to be out there being like, I'm debt free, like, haha. But like, I do definitely think it should be something that you're proud of and not afraid to share. Cause maybe that inspires someone else to like start taking control of their finances.
Well, that's why I started like even coaching or started my Instagram page, because I went through my whole entire debt free journey silent. I didn't say anything. I just did it. It was very lonely because I didn't, I told you, I didn't buy clothes for 3 years. I didn't do anything. I just put all of my paychecks towards my student loans and my car. And I really just wanted to be done with it. But like you said, like for me, I don't want to say I don't have like empathy or sympathy or whatever the word is towards people that say like, oh, these student loans, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll say something like, hey, like I paid off my student loans making XYZ, you know, in this amount of time. And then there'll be an excuse that comes back. Well, this and this. And I'm like, okay, well, then that's your situation. So stop complaining about it. Like it is what it is. You know what I mean? So you can change it if you want. Like I made $48,000 a year and paid off $52,000 of debt in 3 years. So like do the math on that. You know what I mean? Like you can do it. And I think, you know, I'd say 48 is like I'd say that's like what is it? Do you think that's like an average income in the United States? Like I feel like that's even more on the lower end if you have like a college degree and like, you know what I mean? So I don't know, just kind of on my soapbox there, but yeah, totally agree. You have to change your mindset and you have to hold yourself accountable because no one, the government, nobody is coming to save you. You have to, you know, save yourself.
100%. Well, okay, Lauren, so to put a bow on this episode, what would you say, like, you know, we've talked a lot about like fixing financial mistakes, like kind of breaking that cycle. What would you say is like the next thing someone should focus on once they start to implement those good habits, right? Like they've kind of broken that cycle a little bit. They're in that mode of like, all right, I'm starting to improve. Where do you think they aim their efforts towards once they can break that cycle?
Continuing on that good path that they're on, because I think the problem is we go a month and we haven't like spent like all of our money on eating out and we're like, whoa, we did it, you know? And then the next month where you start to like slide back into those bad habits. So this brings up a good example. So in my personal life, I have decided like I had a come to Jesus meeting with myself the other day. I was like, you spend way too much time on your phone. You don't do anything productive with it. And so I decided like I want to start like leaving my phone on the kitchen counter and like making it like a thing that I have to go like check, like kind of like a home computer. Remember like back in the day when you have a home computer, like the computer room, you had to go like check it, you know? So like for me, it's like, and I have been journaling about this too, like what happens when I want to start taking my phone with me again? I'm going to start putting it back up on the counter again. Like I have to keep that in the front of my mind to make sure that I'm staying on the right path with that. So I think the best thing is to just, you know, don't get too comfortable with the new habits you have. You have to make sure you're sticking with them, you know, whatever that means for you, checking in, have an accountability partner, whatever, but you can put habits in place. And I've seen people, another time, tale of all time or whatever, you know, people changing behaviors for like 1 to 2 months, especially like with your money, with changing your eating habits or whatever. And then it's like, that third month, you're just kind of like, this is hard. I don't want to have to do this anymore. And then you just slide back into those habits, those old habits, and they're comfortable for you because you were in those for so long that's just what you do. So I think just trying to find a way to kind of stay the course, but whether that's, you know, through journaling or through having somebody hold you accountable, hiring a coach, something like that, you really need something that'll keep you on that path.
And like the flip side of that could be too, that like, you know, like definitely like you get a few months down the road and you're like, I'm losing motivation. Yep. The flip side of that is like, maybe you accidentally get a little too overconfident. You think I got this, like the habits are set in stone, and you stop paying attention as much. Yeah. And you stop practicing the smaller habits that were reinforcing the larger habits. And now you kind of slip back without even noticing. 3 weeks go by and you're like, oh man, I don't even know like how I ended up here. You know, like it's kind of both of those. But, you know, I would say like once someone breaks this cycle, right? They break the cycle of the bad behavior. I think the very next thing they need to do is get super clear on where they are going. Yep. Like what is the goal? What is that big vision that we had talked about? And on top of that, because likely that goal is going to be far out into the future, 10, 20 years away, right? Like that's going to be a very far out goal. So breaking that big goal up into like 1 or 2 year, like milestones because if you're looking at a goal that's 10, 20 years down the road, like what you're doing today is probably not going to have as big of an impact 10, 20 years down the road. Right. And so you can kind of lose focus on the day to day because you're so focused on like the bird's eye view or the grand scale of things. But if you can break that big goal up into little like checkpoints, little milestones where it's like, hey, what I'm doing today does matter because the next milestone is only a year or two away. And so therefore today is a whole lot more important. I think if you can kind of find that balance of like, let me identify the really big goal and then let me break that down into something that's one, more manageable, but also something that's going to keep me motivated in the now instead of only being focused on the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was kind of similar to like my debt-free journey. Like, you know, that was hard, you know, like I had to find things along the way to keep me motivated. You know, so I think the bigger vision was there, but I also celebrated the small wins and like worked my way through the years. That was crazy. I can't even believe it's over, you know, but I did it and it's finally done. But you know, there's a mindset shift there too. Like you want to like better yourself and better your finances. So I don't know. I just found like my larger goals and then also like the mini goals kind of, you know, along the way, like, oh, my first one was like, oh, paying off my car. Cause that was like a smaller amount that I had left on it compared to like what I had left on my student loans. So like paying that off. And then I was like, oh, my next goal is like getting this far on this student loan. You know what I mean? Like checking off things along the way to keep you motivated. Cause like, otherwise what's there to really you know, why wouldn't I just go spend my paycheck somewhere else? You know, why pay off this debt? You know,
what you said, like, you can't believe it's already over. Like you can't believe you already accomplished it.
Yeah.
And like
years ago.
Yeah. Like time doesn't wait for anyone. And so 3 years can go by and you can either be at the place you were dreaming of being, or you can still be in the place where you're like, what's going on? Like, I wish things were going to get better, but I don't want to put in the work, you know? So that's always something like I try to remind myself of. I try to help people see as well as like, time isn't waiting. And so you can either continue down the path. In 3 years, you're going to, you know, probably still be here, if not worse off, or you can just give this a try.
Yes.
You know, try, like, just see what happens. Like 30 days go by and it doesn't work out for you. That's no big deal. You know, 30 days is nothing in the grand scheme of your entire life. Yeah. But if you just give it a shot and it does work, like, wouldn't you have rather started that earlier than continuing to wait for something to like magically change in your life?
Yeah. And I also think, you know, when we're talking about, you know, when people get on the right track, I think sometimes what happens is they fall off the track because something gets in the way, you know, well, my car needs this or that, you know, here's a, you know, $1,500 fix or whatever. And then it's just like, you just allow everything to spiral out of control. You know, I know we talked a lot about like eating habits in this. It's like sometimes when you're like, if you're doing a diet or whatever, and then you just decide like, oh, like, I'm going to have birthday cake at this party. And then it just turns into like a big binging weekend, you know, like you can't let like one thing spiral you into a different, you know, direction. Same thing with my phone example. I wrote about this in my journal. I was like, you know, if I find myself scrolling again, I'm just going to say, hey, brain, you're scrolling. Let's go put the phone over on the counter and stop doing that. You know, like just reset. You know, you don't have to like blow the entire thing you just did, but just reset and start again. You know, I don't think that there's a problem with that.
I think people have more moments of clarity like that than they want to recognize. That little moment where, like, for you with scrolling on the phone, where you, the moment of clarity just, and it's a split second where you're like, oh man, is this what I want to be doing?
Exactly.
And most people just ignore it. They're like, I'm already doing it, so I might as well continue. Like, no, it's actually a whole lot worse if you continue, and it's probably going to be way better down the road. It's probably going to reinforce what you're trying to be doing. Even though this was a mistake, if you can pause in the middle of it and say, wait a minute, this isn't where I wanted to go. Let me course correct here. Like, that is a huge, huge thing. And I think more people have those moments of clarity than they want to like give acknowledgement to. Like, we have those moments of clarity every single day with the little things that are going on. And if you take the moment to say, this is it, this is where I'm going to change a little bit, just like 1% today, like that's going to set you on the right path. All right, that wraps up today's episode. And as always, just one simple ask. If you found some value out of today's episode, if you got a little laugh in, consider subscribing and share this with a friend, because that's going to be the best way you can help us grow.
Yeah, and if you want to have your money question answered on the show, you can visit our website, justanothermoneypodcast.com, and click the submit a question button. And don't forget to join us for the next episode of Just Another Money Podcast. The information information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.